Whoosh, 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 whoosh. I'm live with Marcus Mosher. Oh, baby. It's happening. We're together again. Marcus Mosher, so everybody knows, was the second host of the Sonic Truth Dynasty podcast. The first season was Nate List. The second season was Marcus Mosher and other guest co-hosts. Then it was Nate List for consecutive years. Now we have Alan Seslowski, but this is an OG. This is a player profiler podcast network OG that we are here with. Now he's at PFF, of course, doing a great job over there. He's at the Senior Bowl. He knows things. And he also is plugged into a number of these teams. So this is the guy to talk about to get the debriefs from what the hell happened during the NFL draft. Welcome, Marcus.
Matt, it's been way too long since we've talked. I'm looking forward to today's show.
I have it down every year, either before or after the draft, either April or May. We have to talk, but we need to talk more, buddy. This is a person everybody should be following. Marcus_Mosher on Twitter. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he is a fan of Player Profiler. He's actually introduced Player Profiler to some actual NFL teams. So I'm very, very, we're just blessed and honored to have him with us today. And so off we go, Marcus. I have some questions for you. I know you have answers, so we'll just get going here. First question, okay. Which teams had the best NFL drafts?
Let's start with the Colts. I think they probably had my favorite draft, right? Sitting at 4. They didn't panic on a quarterback trade. They didn't panic and take Will Levis. I think Chris Ballard finally got it right at quarterback. You're gonna miss on these quarterbacks. There you go. You're gonna miss on these quarterbacks more often than not.
I agree 100%. How could it be anyone other than the Colts and Ballard?
You gambled on athleticism. And one of the things that we know about the draft is the teams that gamble on athleticism usually hit. You take the most athletic quarterback of all time. You take one of the most athletic cornerbacks of all time in Julius Brents. On day 3, you take one of the most athletic left tackles in the class and Blake Freeland. You take another super athletic cornerback in Darius Rush. You got a wide receiver in Josh Downs. I thought Ballard absolutely crushed it.
What about Adebawawe?
I mean, again, one of the most athletic defensive linemen we've ever seen. We've never seen a defensive tackle run a sub 4.5 40-yard dash at 280 pounds. Just bonkers.
We've never seen it.
Nope.
We've never seen it. So they were taking players that have unprecedented athleticism in the 3rd and 4th rounds. Of all the players you listed, the one that shocked me the most, because I've seen athletic edge rushers fall for all kinds of reasons, too stiff or sub package player, all these reasons why, we can't invest too much in this guy. And then he goes to the next level and he's a total menace. We've seen this over and over and over again with edge rushers falling to the day 2, sometimes leaking into day 3. What I rarely see is a tackle, a big offensive lineman can play guard, right tackle, maybe not left tackle, whatever, but at least you got 3 positions, left guard, and right tackle on the board for Blake Freeland. I didn't understand how he was available. Didn't make any sense. That kind of player with that kind of profile never makes it to the 3rd round.
No, and typically those type of athletes, regardless of their tape, go in the 2nd or 3rd round.
Yes.
Blake Freeland was PFF's #1 graded offensive tackle from last season. He did not allow a sack. I think he only gave up like 6 pressures at all of last year. What a home run by Chris Ballard.
That was the home run of the draft. He's 6'8", Marcus. He's 6'8" with a 100th percentile burst score. So if you want someone that's going to get to the edge, if you want to have a stretch zone running scheme, he is going to be the centerpiece of that scheme. He had the 2nd best athleticism score in this class at line. And then in the class overall, number 4 across all positions. He didn't go third round. No. He even leaked into the fourth round. I keep thinking of him as a third rounder because my brain can't process that he was available. And then they had the whole night. Every NFL team had 12 hours to figure out how to get up to get Blake Freeland at the 401. And he ended up going 404. So
Incredible
I don't know
guy.
what this kid said in the interviews. That was my only speculation, is maybe he said weird stuff in the interviews. That's the only way a kid like this falls to the fourth round. I don't get it.
I heard from a couple crusty old scouts, oh, his butt's not big enough and he needs to add a little bit of weight to his lower legs. Like, you could do that stuff after a year or two in an NFL weight room. But you know what you can't teach? This type of size and athleticism. It's just insane how backwards some of these scouts are.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So yes, Ballard's back.
Yes, he's
right?
back.
I was
baby.
out on Ballard and he's pulled me back in, right? Just when I thought I was out, oh baby, am I in? He's back to being a top 3 general manager in the league. I have about 6 or 7 top 3 general managers and about 13 top 5 general managers, but he is legit squarely in the top 3. He's back all the way back. He tilts on quarterback, but other than that, Ballard typically gets the other positions right, and now he's finally got the quarterback position right with Anthony Richardson. How do NFL teams view Anthony Richardson?
Like a project, which he is, right? Like, I think it's going to take him a while before he becomes a competent NFL passer. But my belief anymore is these guys that are athletic and that can run, it's not that they just have a higher ceiling. I think they have a higher floor because they can come in right away and they can give you something with their legs while they're figuring out the passing game. We've seen it from Jalen Hurts. We've seen it from Lamar Jackson. I think some of the more forward-thinking teams in the NFL loved Anthony Richardson, but some of these old teams that they want the guy with 40 starts and a completion percentage over 67%, they just didn't like him. I don't really care. This is the guy that I would have gambled on with the number 1 pick.
With the number 1 pick, right? If we had the number 1 pick, I would have gone either Stroud or Richardson. You would have gone Richardson over Stroud even.
Yeah, because the upside is just so much greater, right? And if I'm going to lose and I'm going to miss on the pick, I'd rather gamble on a guy that could potentially go toe-to-toe with a Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert. Being a mid-level quarterback is going to do nothing for me.
It's a good point. All these quarterbacks are susceptible to busting. We have a long history. I remember when the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft were so locked in. They were the definitive top 2 picks. It was known for months and months. There was no debate. It was going to go 1-2. These guys, these are national champions, both of them, with incredible skill sets. One had the huge arm. One had the all-purpose rushing, high completion percentage, everything you want. Both had the size. It was Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. And where are they now? Where are they now, Marcus? So any of these quarterbacks can bust, no matter how much you love Levis, Stroud, Young, even Young. Yes, Young he aced the S2 test. Great, right?
Awesome.
You know who else has aced cognitive tests? Blaine Gabbert aced the Wonderlic. So it's not a sure thing, man.
No.
Especially when you don't have any comps that are proven productive players in the league. Let's say Pro Bowl starts, right? Pro Bowl players, Pro Bowl level players. If you're comping to Pro Bowl level players, you have to go all the way back to Drew Brees to find a comp for Bryce Young at 5'8". Who else?
It's not great. Doug Flutie is the other comp that other teams have been throwing out. It's like, great. If he hits his ceiling, he could be Doug Flutie.
Wait, so teams were throwing out the Doug Flutie comp
in a positive way. Like,
Bryce
hey, this
Young?
is what he could potentially be if he hits.
In a positive way for the CFL?
Yeah, well, it's been Buffalo for like 6 months.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is wild. And yet a team felt comfortable drafting him with the number 1 overall pick. the guy that is being comped to Doug Flutie. Like, listen, Drew Brees happened, but Drew Brees was the first pick in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to comp to a Brees, but also a Manziel and a Mayfield and a lot of other quarterbacks that just don't ever get drafted because scouts look at their size and they go, this isn't going to happen. And Bryce Young at 5'11", get out of here.
Maybe 5'11". Maybe.
I don't know what kind of ruler, yardstick they're using to set the 5'11" height on Bryce Young, but he's not 5'11".
No.
He's at most 5'10". And every time I talk to him, I take an inch away. So I think today, I think he's 5'6". Yeah, for the 5'6" Bryce Young.
Well, think about it. As he gets older,
he's going to be
shrink,
soon
right?
enough.
Yeah, once he gets into his 30s, it's going to shrink a little bit. So, yeah, by the time his career is over, he might be 5'7", 5'6". Listen, I get it. It seems like he aced everything else except for size, but we know size matters in the NFL.
Size matters a lot. Yeah. Size is a big deal. So I think we should, so if it were you had your board, you had it Richardson, Stroud, Young, or did you have Levis in there?
No, not Levis. Let's be real. Levis is not a first-round quarterback. There's nothing about his profile to suggest he's a first-round quarterback. To me, it would have been Richardson, and then I think there would have been a gap. And I probably would have gambled on Bryce Young just because he was so productive at Alabama with less than ideal weapons. But it would have taken a lot for me to take one of those other quarterbacks inside the top 2 or 3 picks other than Richardson.
Did you think that Stroud is a system quarterback? Is that you think Stroud is Mariota?
I think he's a little bit better than that, but I think he might be Jared Goff in the NFL, where you need to have a really good offensive line in front of him. You need to have weapons, get rid of the ball quick, and let's move on.
I think he has a higher ceiling than that. He's certainly a better runner. I think that Ohio State intentionally suppressed his rushing ability. And I think that he's going to be more of an all-purpose weapon and has the ability to sustain drives with his legs.
A little Dak Prescott-like?
I think that's a comp.
Yeah.
See, that's a comp I like for I think that when Dak was coming out, this wasn't an upside play.
No.
This was like, hey, this is a player who checks a lot of boxes. Great touchdown interception ratio, takes care of the football, can tactically scramble when we need him, throws into open windows. Well, that's Dak Prescott. Now he's got a, $300 million contract and he's the face of the franchise. So there is upside with CJ Stroud that Bryce Young does not have.
And maybe Stroud doesn't have the rushing potential that Dak had, 2016, 2017, 2018. But I think more of like the Dak that we've seen over the last couple of years, where you can be a really efficient passer, a high volume passer. If you get in the right offense, which I think it's going to be pretty good in Houston in a year or two, you can put up numbers.
Now, give me another team that you thought aced the draft.
I thought the Patriots crushed it.
I thought
really? I do. Christian Gonzalez was my top cornerback in the class. He just checks every box. And the fact that you were able to not only get him in the first round, but trade down from 14 to 17, pick up another 4th round pick and select him at 17 was magnificent. Top of that, Keon White, 285-pound edge rusher with speed, athleticism that Belichick can move around. Marte Mapu, I thought was the best box safety in the draft. And who's better at using box safeties in the NFL than Bill Belichick?
That's where you get your box safety. You want a box safety? Go get one from a small school, Sacramento State, in the 3rd round. That's where you draft guys to stop the run. That's where you draft guys from small schools.
Just like Kyle Duggar, right? I think he's going to have a very similar role to Kyle Duggar in the NFL. And then on day 3, they threw numbers at the offensive line. They drafted a high upside receiver in Kayshon Boutte. I love their draft.
Yeah, there is upside with Boutte, right?
Oh, absolutely. Right. We've seen him be a productive receiver in the SEC. It's just, can you get him back to the version of 2020 and 2021 that we saw?
Now, typically, NFL teams will chase the high school recruiting profile more than what we saw with Kayshon Boutte, where he was selected Was it partially the behavioral issues that he was bringing to the table, as well as the underwhelming production at the end of his stint at LSU? Was it a combination of those forces that pushed him all the way down?
That, and there's also some injury stuff there. Was a little bit banged up the last couple of years at LSU, but talking about like the fifth, sixth round to gamble on a player with that kind of talent, it's perfect because let's say he doesn't fall in line and he's not picking up the offense. Teams cut fifth and sixth round picks all the time. It's not a big deal, but if it hits, you've just found a starting caliber receiver after pick 125.
Look at some of the other receivers they were drafting in round 6 and 7. We didn't even have them in our database. We didn't know who they were. They weren't in any mocks. They were complete off the board, irrelevant players that'll never see a snap, never play it down in the NFL. And for the Patriots to get Kayshon Boutte there, it's great. Like, congratulations. Yep. You did it.
Absolutely. And I just thought they addressed both sides of the ball really well. Bill Belichick, I know we like to make fun of him, but he still knows a little bit about ball.
I think he got it. I think they got it right. They got it. You're right. They got it. Give me one more. Give me one more team.
Ooh, I think the Cardinals, right? I mean, not only because I like Paris Johnson Jr., the offensive tackle from
at
Ohio
value
State,
where they got him.
Right. I mean, they are in position now to potentially have two of the top, we're going to be conservative, 5 picks in next year's draft, which, I mean, by all indications is just so much better. They needed talent in the worst way. They just had 1 million draft picks in this class. I thought the Cardinals crushed it.
Yeah, well, look at their second round pick, BJ Ojulari. This was, you could tell this is the post Steve Keem era in Arizona. These were not Keem picks. This was trade down, and draft the best player at their position, like a Paris Johnson or a BJ Ojulari. A player that has a lot of potential on the edge, outside backer, right? I mean, he's not the biggest guy, 6'2", but he's 6'2", 250.
Yeah.
Right.
I think he can rush
the guy is actually super durable.
Yeah. Yep. And if it wasn't for a hamstring injury that he suffered in the pre-draft process, I think he would have been maybe a first-round pick because he's a lot better than what his 3-cone time showed. And you watched like him against Broderick Jones, the tackle that went 14 to the Steelers. He dominated him, absolutely dominated him. I thought the Cardinals were magnificent.
Yeah, they were one of my big winners. I also had the Eagles as a big winner. I think that's a chalk pick. Everybody knows the Eagles were big winners, right?
Yes. Yeah. And listen, Howie Roseman gets enough credit from everybody else. We don't need to give him credit here.
That's right. The Steelers, they had a good draft. They had a very Steelers draft, a lot of chalk picks. That's what the Steelers do. They draft good players. But I wasn't like, oh, this is a top 3 draft like some other people were. And also the Bears had a good draft. Do you agree with that? Dexter, absolutely. Stevenson, those were great values in the second round. And Ryan Poles, definitely much better. Huge upgrade over Ryan Pace. He's the much better Ryan.
Not even sure it's close. Plus, Chicago, they drafted Tyler Scott later in the draft, who wouldn't be surprised if he's the Darnell Mooney replacement a year from now, with Mooney going into the final year of his deal.
They just replaced the guys that they knew they needed to replace. Yeah. They're looking at the contracts and when they're sunsetting and planning ahead. So there's a lot of planning ahead, where with Ryan Pace, not a lot of planning ahead. Ryan Poles still not the best Ryan in Bears management history, Buddy Ryan.
There you go.
So he's still got a ways to go. If we combine the coaches and the general managers together, still not the best Ryan. Okay, now the worst drafts. Who had this is more fun to talk about the worst drafts.
I thought Detroit was horrendous in this year's draft.
And a betrayal of everything that I thought I knew about a general manager was proven wrong. And I was like, I don't even know you anymore. I thought I knew him. I loved him. I was on my knees, kissing this man's feet. Like, thank you for bringing rationality back to the league. And now he just, as soon as I stood up, I was on my knees, kissing his shoes. I stood up, I turned around, and then, God, right in the back, man.
And you know what's going to happen?
I felt sick. I was nauseous. I was just, I couldn't believe it. I thought I was in a dream world. I was like, is this happening? Am I daydreaming?
So we know what's going to happen, right? We're going to be in the middle of October, and Peter Schrager is going to be talking about, hey, everybody made fun of the Lions draft, but look, they've got Gibbs, who's leading the team in rushing yards, Jack Campbell making every tackle for them, Brian Branch starting at safety. That's not the point. I think they got good players, but they reached at every single spot, and they took, of their top 4 picks, they took the 4 least valuable positions: a running back, an off-the-ball linebacker, a tight end, and a box safety. You couldn't have worse positional value. This was a draft that lined up with 2 or 4 top 50 picks where you could become a legitimate contender in the NFC. Instead, it seems like the Lions are content being 9-8 and just being the feel-good Lions.
They blew it. They blew it. I was like, listen, all you need to do is solidify the positions that you know matter most.
Yes.
How about Broderick Jones with the 12th pick?
Sure.
And not overthink it. Or Christian Gonzalez, or Will McDonald, Lucas Van Ness. They're all there, right? Why not Lucas Van Ness? Why not Broderick Jones? And then after Gibbs goes, guess who goes next? Van Ness, Jones, bam, bam.
Yep.
Because of course, Packers, Steelers,
Patriots.
And then the Patriots go Gonzalez. And then they go Campbell. And then what's next? Kalijah Kancey.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then they need wide receiver, right? They had Jackson Smith and Jigba, the best wide receiver in this class by far and away, was right there. They could absolutely use another wide receiver, especially with Jamison Williams suspended and his career. Now, there's doubts about how committed he is to the sport, where his headspace is at. Why not just get Jackson Smith and Jigba and shore up your wide receiver core? No. Right? No. I mean, if you wanted to either stop the run or be a better running team, right? If you wanted to invest in the running game, period, then go Kalijah Kancey, right? Because at least he can absorb offensive linemen, and he is more relevant in passing situations than these other positions like off-ball linebacker. What are you doing? My speculation is that because the Lions exceeded expectations last year, that there was a behind-the-scenes micro power struggle between Holmes and Dan Campbell. And I believe Dan Campbell was rewarded with the ability to pick some of the groceries in the draft, and that this is the Dan Campbellization of the organization manifesting at the worst possible time in this organization's trajectory.
It's usually a bad sign when the coach get involved with picks, because what do they want? They want guys that make their job easier, right? And I think Jack Campbell's a perfect example. There's not a lot of coaching up that you need to do with Jack Campbell. He's going to come in right away, be a productive linebacker, make 1 million tackles, and you're not going to have to worry about him. You're not going to have to coach him up. There's no projection involved. But that's not what Detroit needed. They needed more upside, because they're not going to catch the Eagles, the 49ers, and the Cowboys by just hitting doubles, right? Their defense was so bad last year. I thought cornerback was their biggest need. And the NFL gave you a gift of Christian Gonzalez.
Was there, Marcus.
He was there.
He was there.
Just accept it. Take it. Be like, thank you. We traded back from 6 to 12 when we got the best cornerback in the class. Awesome. Like,
let other teams fuck up in front of you.
Yes. And Detroit decided to do something else. They decided to be short-term, get the guys that could help right away. I got a feeling down the road, we're going to come back and look at this draft and be like, this is where Detroit messed up.
This is where the whole organization was derailed. Go round by round. First round, running game. Second round, running game, right? I guess Sam Laporta, you can consider a move tight end, but a move tight end is not necessarily a position that you want to invest in the early second round. Move tight end is a position you invest in round 3 and 4. You want a tight end that's has a little more two-way ability. If they had gone Luke Musgrave there, that would have been a better pick. And then in round 3, Hendon Hooker. So I keep going down the list of all their players that they drafted. None of them, Broderick Martin, D tackle, none of these players in the first 3 rounds help their passing game or help their pass defense in 2023, a year when they're trying to push their chips in and go compete for a championship. They drafted 0 players that help their passing game or pass defense in the first 3 rounds, which is a crime. It's a crime given the capital they came in with.
I agree. I will also say I thought Green Bay had a very mid draft. I did not like their class. Lucas Van Ness in the first round is fine. I think it was a little bit of a reach, but it's fine. I'm not going to complain about that one. It's what they did on day 2 that I didn't love. Jayden Reed, I thought he had a profile of somebody who was worth drafting in the top 125. He was fine at the Senior Bowl, but to draft that guy at 50 overall, who really
he was quite good at the Senior Bowl. He was quite good. But so was Nathaniel Dell. My suspicion is they could have drafted Jayden Reed a little later and still got him. And the same thing with Musgrave. They clearly value the Senior Bowl very highly. They value athleticism very highly. So those are typically things that you like to see in front offices. But I agree, Musgrave at 11 was good. Why then double dip at tight end if you already have Musgrave? That didn't make a lot of sense to me. I would have rather seen them try to mine value with a guy like Kuntz in the third, day 3.
Yep.
That would have been a better thing. And then they could have gone with, like, for example, this D end, Yaya Diaby, incredible pick with the 19th selection in the 3rd round. That's the kind of pick that I was hoping that a team like the Packers would go for, but they didn't, right? So you look through a couple picks ahead of them. That's when Mapu went to the Patriots. Great, right? And then you see a couple more picks later. There goes Yaya Diaby. So it's you look through and you could see every 2, 3, 4 picks. Oh, there's a team that focuses on the right details. Oh, there's a team that focuses on the right details. Oh, there's an athletic player from a small school. Oh, they get it, right?
I just don't see it with Jayden Reed. I think that's somebody who traditionally goes late 3rd, early 4th round, because I think he's a good route runner, but he's below average size. The athleticism is fine. I don't know. I just think that's a very blah pick at 50 when the rest of the league believed he was a 4th round receiver. I liked a lot of the receivers that went in the 3rd round better than Jayden Reed. And now with 2 tight ends, are you going to be playing 2 rookie tight ends? One of them who
I didn't understand that. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But I will say Jayden Reed pick better than the Jonathan Mingo pick.
Yeah, Jonathan Mingo had no business belonging in the top 100 at all.
That was a very Terrace Marshall selection right there. That was like going Terrace Marshall, but earlier. Now you got Mingo and Marshall. It's like just 2 prototypical X receivers that are going to struggle to get separation, are going to struggle to be in the right place at the right time.
Unless Mingo plays in the slot. That's the only way that I can see him having
everybody
value.
in the slot.
You can't.
Dude.
No,
Marvin Mims was the guy. If you want to pick a true playmaker, a true difference maker, we had Marvin Mims ranked higher than Rashee Rice, Jayden Reed, especially Mingo. I mean, the fact that Mingo was drafted in the top 50 necessarily enhances his dynasty value. His dynasty stock rises because of it, but it's not like he hasn't changed who he is.
Yep. Mingo, 1 percentile separation grade versus single coverage last year, according to PFF. He was the worst separator in college football last year.
He couldn't separate at the Senior Bowl.
No, he can't. So I think his only option is to play in the slot. Will Carolina do that? I don't know, but they almost have to gain any kind of value there.
Mims can separate.
Oh, yeah, he can. That's
Marvin Mims.
Flip side, 99th percentile separation grade versus single coverage.
Major separators. That was one of, if not my Osiris Torrance at the end of the 2nd round. It doesn't get better than that.
That's a good value.
I mean, that value was absurd. This is a giant Florida guard, and that's what you want right there. Give me a guard at the end of the second round. If I had to pick a position to go at the end of the second round, give me a guard. Oh, yeah. Give me a big guard. 330-pound guard.
Awesome at the Senior Bowl. Like, he was great.
Of course he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's 6'5", 330.
Yep.
It's just like, how? How is he like the fact that like you could get Osiris Torrance at the end of the second, and then you could get Blake Freeland at the beginning of the fourth round is all you need to know. All you need to know. What about you follow the Cowboys, end of the second round, they're going Luke Shoonmaker. That was interesting. I didn't see Shoonmaker as a second round pick. Clearly, there are people in Dallas that care about athleticism.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their last several drafts. You take Tyler Smith in the first round last year, one of the most athletic offensive linemen we see. The year before that, it was Micah Parsons. You took Sam Williams, who had a ridiculous athleticism score in the second round last year. They care about athleticism because they know scouting is really hard, and most people don't get it right. So if you're going to miss, gamble on great athletes, and that's what Luke Shoonmaker is.
It's hard to argue with that, right? It's hard to argue with Shoonmaker. It's hard to argue with Kraft in the following round, and then Kuntz. You go down the board in most of these rounds because the tight end position was so deep. You could find upper percentile athletes in every round, which then makes the Michael Mayer pick at the beginning of the second round essentially a reach, given how deep this class was and how underwhelming his athletic profile is. I mean, he better be a real savant at the position, given that he is one of the worst athletes when you adjust for size we've seen at the tight end position.
On top of that, the Raiders traded up to get Michael Mayer. So it wasn't even like they let him fall to them at 38. They actually moved up, gave another top 100 pick to go get him. I like Mayer. I think he's one of these guys that is able to overcome average athleticism because he's the most prolific receiving tight end we've ever seen at Notre Dame. I just don't know if the ceiling is there. I know a lot of people have comped him to Zach Ertz, and I think that's pretty fair.
That's what he's comped to. I think that's what we have in my player profile. I think that the metrics comp him to Zach Ertz. I think he is Zach Ertz. Or Hunter Henry, one of the two.
I'd rather be Zach Ertz.
I hope it's Zach Ertz, but Zach Ertz also comps to Hunter Henry. I mean, this is the zone we're in, right?
Just don't be Devin Asiasi, who I heard somebody else comp him to.
Well, I think the range is basically you have on this side on the high end, you have Ertz, mid-level, Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry
Good
had
player.
some 800+ yard seasons in the NFL. I mean, this guy was productive with the Chargers. And then on the other end, you have Schultz. Dalton Schultz would be, that's I think the reasonable range of outcomes for Michael Mayer. And that to me is not enough to go with that player in the early second round. Very much Mayer is like the Bryce Young of the tight end class, where Luke Musgrave is the Anthony Richardson.
Sure.
You agree with that?
Fair. Yeah, I think so. I mean, how likely is Musgrave to hit his ceiling? Probably not very likely. Only 2 career broken tackles, more drops and touchdowns. But there is that 5% chance that he becomes Jimmy Graham, right? Like once he's in a system that finally throws him the ball down the field, that gives him the targets that he needs, it could work. I'm just not banking on it, but I'm also not drafting him inside the top 50 picks either, the top 40 picks or wherever he went.
Can you believe how bad the Saints draft was?
Yeah, it's
pretty every year with this team, every year they're punting picks and they're just squandering. It's just a big squander with this team. It's just whack, right? Like even in the first round, what are they doing? Run defender, right? And then Foskey, he is the most busterific second round pick.
He's a run defending edge guy who, listen, I didn't love his tape. I didn't love Brian Brzez's tape. They're clearly going to try to stop the run. And maybe it's because they look at the division. Atlanta is going to run the ball. Maybe they feel like they need to be better at that phase of the game. But I don't get it. I don't get it.
It was weird. I mean, Nick Saldiveri, solid pick, right? If you're going to take a 6'6", 320 tackle from a small school who was good at the Senior Bowl in the 4th round. That was the 401. Right?
But
That was the guy. They had him graded ahead of Blake Freeland, apparently.
But Kendre Miller in the 3rd round?
Right. Yes, I know. That was their one good pick, Marcus. Their 4th round guy was the one guy where we're like, hey, good job, everybody.
Because it's a 4th round pick that showed he could play on an important position. The rest of it just I don't get.
The rest of it is the stone worst. Do you have any other drafts that you thought it was just a whiff?
I didn't think too many other teams were bad, except for the 49ers taking a kicker inside the top 100.
See, the thing is, we're like, well, you can't blame the 49ers. They didn't have enough picks. They didn't have any capital.
Sure you can.
Why didn't they have that capital? Because they used it on a running back.
Mm-hmm.
They traded for a running back, and they traded for a quarterback that had 1 season of production at North Dakota State.
Yep.
And they took that guy over Justin Fields and Mac Jones. They traded up for that guy. They traded a treasure trove of picks to get Trey Lance. So it's as if they used all those picks on Lance and Christian McCaffrey. That's how you have to judge this draft. And in that context, you can't use a 3rd round pick on a place kicker, Marcus. What?
And then another 3rd round pick on a blocking tight end that most people didn't think was going to get drafted, and Cameron Latu from Alabama. Like, those are your top 2 picks. You lost a ton of talent this offseason, and that's what you're coming away with in this draft?
I mean, I like Jahmyr Brown.
Sure. Yeah.
Jahmyr Brown's a good
safety. Best pick.
Solid. That's their best pick. That was also their first pick that they had. The rest of it was just woof. And here's the other thing they were doing. This is the thing that gets me every time. I talked about it on the draft stream. You go late 3rd round, Alabama tight end. Do you think you're really mining gold there? No. Do you really think that you're finding someone that the other scouting services and teams hadn't been over 1,700 times, seen all the tape on this guy, 500 loops of tape evaluation? And then you think you're really getting value on a 7th round guy from Oklahoma and a 7th round guy from Michigan. Ronnie Bell can't play. He flat cannot play. And you think you're getting value on Robert Beal from Georgia. You don't think these teams have been picked over by the time it gets to you in the 5th round? That's why the Patriots go in Sacramento State. That's what you got to do. It's a waste. It's just, you're lighting them on fire. You might as well trade them. If you're going to go Clemson guy, Alabama guy, Georgia guy in round 6, what do you know what I call that? The Deion Kane corollary.
Well, the other thing is
because Deion Kane was dead the moment he was drafted. I was like, because you got to understand,
yes,
5 rounds ticked by before a guy that was in the national championship game got drafted.
Exactly.
Give me a break.
You drafted not 1, but 2 blocking tight ends. Braden Willis is really more of an H-back. You already have an H-back on your roster, and Kyle Juszczyk. You're not going to roster 2 of those guys. You already have 2 blocking tight ends on your roster. Do you really want a 3rd one of those guys? And do you need to burn a 3rd round pick? No, absolutely not. So I hated San Francisco's draft.
It was awful. It was truly, truly awful. Okay, now 10 burning NFL draft questions. 10 burning NFL draft questions from Marcus Mosher. Give me your favorite 1st round landing spot with a fantasy twist. You got to have a fantasy twist.
Yeah.
Here. Skill position.
It's Jordan Addison landing with the Vikings. He's the only receiver in this class that walks in and is a wide receiver 2 on his respective team right away, right? Because Quentin Johnson is going to be the 3rd receiver there with the Chargers. Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be the slot guy, the 3rd receiver with the Seahawks. Zay Flowers, maybe the 3rd receiver. Certainly not even the 3rd passing option with Odell, Bateman, Mark Andrews. I think Jordan Addison playing in some of these condensed formations with Kevin O'Connell, I think he's going to get a lot of targets as a rookie.
He's going to smash.
Yeah.
He's going to absolutely smash. I can't believe that everyone isn't in lockstep with Jordan Addison, rising up Dynasty. How is this not a great landing spot? Oh, he's not going to be the number 1. Yeah, he's going to be the number 2 and one of the most prolific pass attacks in the league.
I agree. And
it's going to be shootout after shootout. That's what the Vikings do. They get into shootouts. And Kirk Cousins was super unlucky last year. The offense in general, the drives stalled out because of sacks and penalties, because their whole offensive line was decimated with injury. And there's just some bad luck plays. They had an inordinate number of bad luck plays last year. This is going to be a big time offense.
Yes.
And Jordan Addison is a big time player.
And I think it also helps that he's been productive at 2 different schools. I think the transition to the NFL is going to be easy for him. And, oh, by the way, he is never going to see double coverage in his life in Minnesota. He's going to smash as a rookie.
He's a total smash. I want Addison please give me all the Addison, bring it all in. But I also like Zay Flowers, don't love the landing spot, but in Dynasty in particular, we draft players for their profile, not for their landing spot. Rashad Bateman's still not healthy. There's a chance that Zay Flowers opens up the year as the number 1 receiver. That's actually possible because Odell Beckham didn't play last year.
Yep.
Rashad Bateman barely played. So it's not a doomed landing spot necessarily for Zay Flowers. I also think that Baltimore Ravens are going to ask Lamar Jackson to run less. And this offense is going to be back to its 2019, 2020 level, prolific and efficient. I'm excited. I'm excited about the Ravens offense this year. New offensive coordinators, the whole thing. Everything seems to be clicking into place for the Ravens this year. So I'm in on Flowers. I'm in on Bateman in fantasy at value. I'm in on Odell. Stack them all up. They're all available super late, especially in dynasty startups. So I think that's a move there. Give me your least favorite landing spot. You can't say Zay Flowers.
I'm not going to say Zay Flowers. It's Dalton Kincaid with the Bills. I think this is a better real life fit than it is a fantasy fit, because there's just no way that he's going to get enough targets in that offense to be useful for us in our fantasy leagues, right? Like, I think he's going to help move the sticks. I think there's going to be 3 or 4 times a game that he gets targeted in a big game situation. But we wanted Kincaid to go to an offense where he could be the featured guy and not a complimentary piece. And unfortunately, that's what he's going to be in Buffalo.
So we have a debate here at Player Profiler between a tight end that received more competition for targets at the tight end position, which is never a good sign. Darnell Washington goes to the Steelers. In Dynasty, who would you rather have, Pat Freiermuth or Dalton Kincaid?
Ooh, that's a really good one.
It's a good one, right? That's a tough question. I think I would go Kincaid because of the upside of being in the Bills offense. And if he really is the superstar they think he is, drafting him in the first round. But to me, it's very close.
I think the tiebreaker for me is Pat Freiermuth has had some injuries, including multiple concussions in the last couple of years. I also think that's just going to be a really slow-paced offense. I would gamble on Kincaid because of the upside, and maybe Stephon Diggs leaves in a year or 2. Maybe Gabe Davis leaves in free agency next year. I could at least see a path where he could get 120 targets.
Why did Darnell Washington slide in the draft?
Well, a couple of reasons. Let's start with the obvious one. There's some medical stuff going on here. We heard some more reports about a knee. We heard a couple of reports about a foot. It sounds like he's not able to practice on back-to-back days because of swelling, and there's some of that kind of stuff. Now, I don't think he's going to miss any time. Like, I don't think he needs ACL surgery or anything like that right now, but it's one of the things that you're going to have to maintain and watch. And NFL coaches just kind of hate having to deal with those players, especially if you're not like a superstar or a first-round pick. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is they think he's kind of clunky, right? And you just don't see very many 6'7", 275-pound tight ends. And they just wonder, like, how is that going to translate in the NFL? Are you going to be too slow to get open? Are you going to be too tall to block? And can you move around in the formation? I think there's a lot of reasons why he fell in this draft.
More burning questions for Marcus Mosher after this. Hey, it's the Podfather. Now, in the offseason, I get into baseball, I get into basketball, and my preferred platform to play fantasy sports is Rival Fantasy, because Rival Fantasy has challenges where you can just take a guy and say, hey, this guy's going to score more fantasy points than this guy. They put 2 shortstops together, pick one. Point guards, pick one. Spoiler alert, you should pick Damian Lillard. Or they have the fantasy book. where you can pick over, under, and up to 5 guys. And then the more you pick, your potential payout quickly escalates. And finally, I submit a bingo card because you can just go over, under across the board, get your fantasy bingo card set, submit it. I'm not the biggest basketball or baseball expert, but I have a hell of a lot of fun playing fantasy sports on rivalfantasy.com. And the best part is with promo code PLAYER, they refund up to $50 of any losses. So the promo code there is PLAYER on rivalfantasy.com. Go have some fun. Should Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor be thrilled about this Anthony Richardson to the Colts pick?
I think Jonathan Taylor should be, right? When is the last time we've seen an athletic quarterback play and the running back not just absolutely crush it? Go back to the Vince Young days where there was Vince Young and Chris Johnson, or the Michael Vick and TJ Duckett and Warren Dunn, or Lamar Jackson and even Mark Ingram, who was totally washed up at that point.
You know how efficient J.K. Dobbins was as a rookie?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh, do you remember that?
Yeah, like over 6 yards a carry.
It was crazy. And don't even get me started with Alfred Morris.
Yeah, I mean, these guys always crush.
Yeah, so Jonathan Taylor, very happy. Jonathan Taylor's the guy. If you're drafting on Underdog or FFPC and you're in the middle of the first round and you're looking at Bijan and you're looking at Jonathan Taylor, what are you doing?
I'm probably taking Bijan. Just give me the young running back who, listen, if you spend a top 10 pick on a running back, you are going to force feed that guy the ball, right? Because you have to justify the pick to your fans, right? There's no way that you're spending the 8th overall pick on a running back to only give him 11 to 12 touches a game. You can count on Bijan getting 18 to 19 touches a game, getting some work in the passing game. He's the guy that, frankly, I think I would take number 2 at running back, only behind Christian McCaffrey this year.
Wow. Whoa. Okay. And for the record, Trent Richardson is considered a bust, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Considered a bust.
Yes, definitely.
In his rookie year, 2012, do you know how many fantasy points per game he put up?
Probably a ton. He got so much work.
Yep. 17 fantasy points a game, 950 yards rushing, 51 receptions for 367 yards, and 12 touchdowns with the Browns. And then the Colts traded for him.
And even then, the Colts made sure that every time they were at the goal line, he got work, right? Because they had to justify getting their first round pick back in value. So you can bank on Bijan either being number 1 or number 2 in total touches per game this season.
I am worried about this Atlanta offense. They're now flirting with Matt Ryan. Have you seen this?
Oh, please no.
Yeah. That's the problem. The Colts offense will be a better offense with Pittman and Taylor. It's super consolidated.
How about Ryan Tannehill?
Taylor's going to catch a lot more passes this year. Now that they've let go of Doolin. It's not that they've let go of Paris Campbell, and they didn't backfill him with any receivers. Did they draft any receivers?
Yeah, Josh Downs.
They have Josh Downs. Okay, so
yep.
I guess Josh Downs is a wash.
Yeah.
With Paris Campbell, but still, I mean,
Pittman's
behind Michael Pittman, you have a slot guy in Josh Downs. You think they'll play him more at Z? How do you think it's going to play out? Where are they going to? I guess Alec Pierce is a prototypical Z, so they should play him at Z. Then they're gonna go ahead and play Downs in the slot. That's a nice C. This is how an offense comes together, man. These are the right people in the right positions. I mean, Michael Pittman is one of the best X receivers in the league.
Plus, they have a couple big athletic tight ends, right? In Jelani Woods, and Mo Alley Cox, right? Just big blocking tight ends with a little bit of receiving upside. I could see this offense starting out the season slow, but by the end of the year, all of a sudden them kind of catching fire.
Yeah, that's my argument, man. That's my argument. So now we have to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs. He is the helium balloon of all helium balloons in rookie drafts. I can't believe where he's going. I can't believe how much hype he's getting just because it was unexpected. it was a possibility he would go in the 20s, but to see him go in the teens and then go to the Lions, it was a prolific offense last year.
Yep.
They were a pass first team. But what did we see in the draft? We see Dan Campbell is now the featured voice in the war room. Okay, you saw that. That was actually my big concern last year because they were, they should behind the scenes when they were drafting players and, hugging it out, and it was great. And I was like, man, Dan Campbell's right in the mix.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is Brad Holmes running everything by Campbell? Why is he so involved in the process here? And now I'm thinking he's even more involved in the process. But what does that mean for team strategy? Do you think they're going to pass at the same rate they did last year, given who they drafted?
No, there's no chance they are, right?
No.
And I've had people ask me in the last couple of days, hey, do I take Gibbs over Bijan in my rookie drafts because he landed on a better team? And it's like, guys, what are we doing here? We've seen, listen, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is at the very top of like the satellite back type, right? Like this, if you want a satellite back, this is the tippy top, right?
Yes.
But he's still a satellite back, right? That you have to get him in space. You're hoping to get him, touches where he only has to beat one guy.
See, the thing is, Marcus, there are players that look like satellite backs, like Kenneth Gainwell, but when you go to watch them in college, they actually were the primary back.
Yes.
They were in there in all situations. Even though they're 200 pounds, they were playing in all situations. Austin Eckler was doing that. Of course, at Stanford, Christian McCaffrey was doing that. So we have evidence that this player has been used in an all-purpose way, that he's been leaned on in all game situations, in the red zone, not being taken off for a bigger back. We can't say that about Jahmyr Gibbs.
Nope. And we know that they made a big time investment in David Montgomery, who is going to be the short yardage back. So if you're not getting a ton of touches and you're not scoring touchdowns, how valuable are you really as a fantasy player? He better catch 70 plus passes this year for us to seriously consider him anywhere close to Bijan.
Well, he's not going to catch that many passes.
And that's the point, right? He's not going
It's hard, man.
Yeah.
It's one thing to run between the tackles and go off instinct if you're a rookie. It's another thing to always know where to be at the right time and then be able to pick up blitzes. And, like, if you're going to be, they're like, oh, they're going to play him in the slot so much. It's going to be crazy how many passes he catches. Do you realize what you're asking a rookie player to pick up? It took Pollard years to learn all the nuances of being a satellite back plus player.
Yep.
It's not easy. It's one of the hardest things to do. It's the reason why tight ends take so long to develop, because in some of these pass plays, you're going to be left in as a blocker and pass protect. And then you're going to leak out. And then the timing has to be right. And you have to read the defense, and they're going to be disguising everything in ways that you never saw in college.
It's not going to happen, right? The other thing is they have a slot receiver who is basically a check down guy for Jared Goff in Amon-Ra St. Brown. They didn't need another one of these, right? They needed somebody else who could help push the ball down the field a little bit. I like Gibbs, but he's going way too high in your rookie drafts. And I promise you he's going to be overdrafted in your redrafts as well.
The beauty is, like, I was having this conversation with Dario and Theo about our rookie rankings. And I said, listen, are we ahead or behind consensus on Jahmyr Gibbs? Having Jahmyr Gibbs like the 105 in Superflex. And Theo was like, we're going to be behind if that's the case. And I'm like, then that's all I care about, fellas.
Yep.
That's all I care about. And if it's me, it's a real conversation between Gibbs and Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's not a smash that you got to go Gibbs there. And certainly I want Richardson, Stroud, and Young over Gibbs. But apparently, Gibbs is going at 102, 103, 104 in Superflex. So no, our subscribers are not necessarily going to get as much Jahmyr Gibbs as you might think, because even though we're relatively bullish, we like the landing spot, we like the player, we love the draft capital.
Mm-hmm.
He is super fast. In real life, how are fantasy points scored? And in real life, what do you think the Lions are going to be doing this year? Do you think they're going to try to just roll out the same playbook and the same pace of play from last year? Absolutely not.
Nope.
Everything we've seen from this team in the last couple months tells us they want to turn back the clock. That's what they're trying to do. That's what the Saints are trying to do. The draft is the time when they can't lie to you, right? There's no coach speak in the NFL draft. It's just, this is who we like, and this is how we want to build our team. And everything is revolving around the running game. That's David Montgomery. If there's a value at running back on this team, it's David Montgomery.
Yeah, I mean, they want to grind the ball football, wear down the clock, and expose Jared Goff as little as possible. And that's not by throwing the ball 35 times a game. And that's what Gibbs would need to justify being drafted at 104, 105 in your super flex leagues. It's just not going to happen.
It's not going to, I love this. No, I love that. But when you actually close your eyes and you think it through, how are these fantasy points going to actually be scored in real life, not theoretically? Oh, by the way, it's not going to happen.
Yep.
We talked about Pollard earlier. So the signal we got from the Cowboys about how they feel about Tony Pollard was very strong.
You think?
I mean that makes me happy.
Let's talk about his competition for a second. It's Malik Davis, an undrafted free agent running back who they signed last year. It's the corpse of Ronald Jones, and it's Deuce Vaughn, a 5'5", 165-pound running back that they drafted in the 6th round, which is really more of a legacy pick because his dad works in the scouting department. There's no competition. And the Cowboys,
is he going to be like a punt returner or something?
He's never done punt returns in his career. I got a feeling he's going to be on the practice squad, and he's the guy that they bring up if Tony Pollard is hurt or doesn't play, just to give you a little bit of juice. But I would be shocked if he's part of their running back rotation.
I almost think it's irresponsible for them to be asking so much of Pollard. Do you think they should have drafted a running back that wasn't Deuce Vaughn in like the 5th round, like gone after like an Abanikanda or someone like that?
They tried. They just kept getting sniped by everybody. I know they like Zach Charbonnet a little bit. He went 52 to Seattle. I know they like Kendre Miller, but they were thinking of him as like a 4th or 5th round option. I know they liked Roschon Johnson as like a day 3 guy, and Roschon went 115 to the Bears. So I think they had intentions of drafting a running back. It just didn't happen, but they are more than fine loading up Tony Pollard on touches in a contract year and saying, hey, show us what you have.
Go get paid.
Go get paid.
Go get paid, Tony. Why not? Tony, go get paid. There's the football. Go run the football. Go get your money.
You tell me how he shouldn't be a 1st-round pick in redraft leagues, considering that offense, the number of touchdowns they score, and the lack of competition. Plus, he's good. Like, he's legitimately good at football. Like, every metric says he's good.
Yes.
How is he not a 1st-round pick?
I don't know. So they weren't interested in Zach Evans at all?
They had Zach Evans in on a 30 visit, and they were out.
Oh, really?
That lasted about 25 minutes, that visit. It was not very long.
What do you think happened?
Just from kind of the whispers, is there some maturity stuff there that the Cowboys just didn't want to bring into that running back room, and because he's clearly talented. Like, I think if you're just stacking up talent, he should have been a top 100 pick all day long. But with some of the transfer stuff moving from TCU to Ole Miss and the way that his high school recruiting played out, I think some teams were just turned off.
I think that was legitimate that they were turned off.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, here's the thing. It's one thing to have a knucklehead or a prima donna at edge.
An important position.
At wide receiver, at tackle. Yeah. Like, if you get a tackle who's a weirdo, you get a tackle who's an asshole. A lot of offensive linemen, by the way, assholes.
Which you kind of want, to be honest. And
that's fine. Yeah. That's called nasty factor. That's what you want. If a running back is hard to deal with, or running back is giving you attitude in an interview, tell him to get lost.
Well, and the other thing, Matt, is like, once you get past a certain point in the draft, these running backs have to be able to play special teams to be active on game day, right? Like, if you're going to be the 3rd running back, you better be either returning punts, on kickoff coverage. And Zach Evans has no history of that.
Because they're going to put Abanikanda maybe at kickoff.
Yeah, or whatever, right? once you get past the 4th and 5th round, then it's just a free fall. And I think that's kind of what happened with Evans.
Right. Yeah. So if you're Roschon Johnson, you're very happy, right?
Yes.
You need to have a team that's going to be drafting you to be a featured back, because after that, if you don't have special teams ability, you're in free fall mode. So there's a very fine line between being Zach Evans and being Roschon Johnson. And you know what teams care about there? They care about attitude. They care about work ethic. They care about the interview process. They care about the referrals from your coaching staff. And every referral, everything about the interview process, everything about the entire prospect evaluation process with Roschon Johnson was just aced. All A pluses.
Right. Like he'll do whatever. He'll play special teams. He'll be your wildcat quarterback. He'll block for you. He'll play tight end. That stuff matters to teams. And it's why Roschon is one of my favorite late round picks, because there's opportunity, right? Like, who is in front of Roschon right now?
Do you really think that Khalil Herbert's better than Roschon Johnson?
I mean, the draft capital says no, right?
No, Khalil Herbert maxed himself out, and I think he is a good, not great, all-purpose back.
Yes.
I think he's one of those.
Yes. You want him in a rotation, but you don't want him to be your featured guy.
You want one of those guys that is a Tyler Algier, a Khalil Herbert. These are players that have demonstrated either at the college level they can catch 30 passes, or the professional level that they can catch passes, and they have the size, they can stand up and pass pro, they can do all those things, run inside, run outside. Herbert can do all of those things, just not any of them at a high level, just good. That's a productive player. That's an Alexander Madison.
Absolutely.
Alexander Madison, he comes in for a game or two, and he's DFS chalk. He's 25 fantasy points a game. That's all you need. And also, Roschon Johnson will be benefiting from the Alfred Morris corollary we talked about, just like Jonathan Taylor. How do you not love this? How do you not love this? You think Dante Foreman? Think they're going to take? Oh, we got to take Roschon off the field for Dante Foreman?
No, on a 1-year deal, and Khalil Herbert, who struggled to stay healthy the last couple of years, like, it won't shock me at all if Roschon's a starter on this team by week 9, week 10, and that's what I want. Like somebody who
or earlier,
right? Like,
what if
he's just a Dameon Pierce of this class and wins a job in camp? Would not shock me at all.
He is the Dameon Pierce,
right?
That's the thing, Marcus. He's Dameon Pierce. How obvious does it have to be? Dameon Pierce, was he super productive in college? No. Did he shred the Senior Bowl? Yes. Was he an early 4th round pick? Yes. Is he basically a little bit smaller version of Roschon in every way? Yes, except that Roschon is a little bit bigger, a little bit better receiver.
And Roschon, like Dameon Pierce, shared carries in college with Malik Davis, Dameon Pierce, Malik Davis at Florida, Bijan, which, hey, there's no shame in backing up Bijan Robinson out of Texas. We've seen the history of these running backs.
Can you imagine if he had the backfield to himself, what Roschon would have been?
Well, and look at the history, Matt, of these really talented running backs that are the second fiddle on their college team, whether it's Josh Jacobs, playing behind Damian Harris in college, or it's Dameon Pierce, who you just mentioned, or go way back when it was Ronnie Brown playing behind Cadillac Williams.
I was going to say Ronnie Brown's the best example of that.
Nick Chubb
didn't
start behind Sony Michel.
That's right. Nick Chubb at times. Absolutely. A great example I like from the 7th round is Chris Carson.
Sure.
Right. Yes. He actually played behind Justice Hill, I believe, at Oklahoma State.
Tony Pollard played behind Darrell Henderson at Memphis. Right. It happens all the time. We shouldn't be so confident that the NFL was right, that Bijan's a top 8 pick, but Roschon's only a 4th round pick. I bet you those guys are a little bit closer in talent than what the draft said.
I know it to be so. The Seahawks, though, could have had a Roschon at least a round later. Instead, they went with Zach Charbonnet, though they already have Kenneth Walker on the team. They invested a 2nd round pick in a running back 2 consecutive years. This is another team that is squandering their extra picks. It seems like these teams get emboldened to blow picks and make these luxury selections when they have extra picks.
That's right. They view them as luxury selections, and they're not, right? You traded away a quarterback to get these picks. Now, it worked out for you, but you should be using these picks at high value positions, not a running back because you think he's going to be better in the screen game than Kenneth Walker.
That's what they think?
Yes, that's literally what Pete Carroll said, that he's going to help us in the screen game.
But that's not even necessarily true.
And the running back isn't the reason why your screen game is good or not. It's your quarterback and your offensive line. So I don't get it.
Oh my God. So we talked about Marvin Mims being the smash in the second round. Who was your favorite third round wide receiver?
Oh, it's Cedric Tillman all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if it's all that close. You go back to 2021, he was the best receiver on that Tennessee team with Velus Jones and with Jalen Hyatt across the board in PFF's stable metrics, 99th percentile separation coverage, 99th percentile receiving grade. He was a superstar in 2021.
71% catch rate.
Yet dominating Georgia.
12 touchdowns.
And the thing is, there's going to be opportunities for him. Donovan Peoples-Jones going into the final year of his contract. Amari Cooper, we know that he can't stay healthy. Elijah Moore is a slot-only receiver. I think by 2024, Cedric Tillman is the wide receiver 2 with upside in Cleveland.
Oh, baby. That is so right. I think this is one of the best third-round classes at wide receiver in recent memory. You like the Michael Wilson pick too, right?
Oh, yeah. Michael Wilson would have been a second-round pick if it wasn't for all the injuries. In fact, I was even surprised that he went in the third round with his injury history. But somebody that has size, that can make plays down the field a little bit, that coaches love his attitude. He'll block, which matters because it means he's going to get on the field.
I mean, his rat-a-tat-tat footwork at the Senior Bowl was the best.
So good. I think he's a fantastic pick there for the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's incredible. So you're underwhelmed by Dalton Kincaid to the Bills. That's not a common position. So I'm very happy with Gibbs and Kincaid. You have to realize these are the two helium balloon players in rookie drafts, and you're here to let the air out of those balloons. I'm very happy. Give us another tight end that you're intrigued by from the draft. And we've talked about a lot of them, but there's a couple more I'm thinking maybe you might be interested in.
I mean, Luke Shoonmaker from the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys spent a second-round pick on Shoonmaker. We know that Cowboys tight end position is extremely valuable for fantasy.
Yes.
Look no further than Dalton Schultz, and Shoonmaker is far more athletic. He's a better blocker, which means he's going to get on the field right away. It won't shock me if in a year he's already putting up better numbers than Dalton Schultz. He was far more productive coming out of school than what Schultz was. This is the guy that the Cowboys really, really wanted. They value that tight end position. Shoonmaker, I think, he's going to outproduce most of the tight ends in this class.
Yeah, 48 targets last year. Okay. 73% catch rate. I know he's older. I think the problem, why is he so old? Was he a JUCO transfer? What happened?
No, he spent all 5 years at Michigan, but he was blocked by a couple guys ahead of him. He had a couple injury issues that he's apparently gotten over, but I don't know if it bothers me all that much because the Cowboys have shown they're going to use this tight end during his rookie contract and they're going to move on.
Yeah. When they drafted him, I was like, oh, that's interesting because this was a guy I thought was really good looking at his athletic profile alone because that's what is so predictive for tight ends. But then where he was being mocked, it's like, okay, we can't be too far out in front on a guy like Shoonmaker. We can like him, but we have to. But then see some of these teams, it's the players they don't talk about. Like this is one of my favorite comments from a draft analyst was like, you've got to be wary of the players that no one ever talks about because they're the ones that are going to go. People are afraid to talk about player X because they think that he's an under the radar prospect. That scouts and executives, they're happy to start whisper campaigns about players that everybody knows, right?
Yeah.
But it's the players that they believe that they have an inside track on, that it is lips sealed. And so we never know how NFL teams are going to feel like a Shoonmaker until the draft actually happens. Like, oh yeah, I guess he was a second rounder all along. Look at him.
And the other thing I'll say really quickly about Shoonmaker, because I know a lot of people are saying, what about Jake Ferguson, who had a nice rookie season? The athleticism testing isn't even comparable. Shoonmaker is so much more athletic than Ferguson, and the Cowboys view Ferguson as a complementary piece at tight end. Shoonmaker is the guy that actually can scare defenses a little bit, and that's why you're going to see him play more this year.
Oh my God. Now, speaking of this, now on the other end of that spectrum, right? You get the players like Shoonmaker that everyone's like don't talk about. We don't talk about Shoonmaker, right? We don't want even the press, the media to get whiff that this guy's actually a second rounder on our board. Some of these players, it's the opposite. It's like everyone's talking about them all the time, trying to drive up the price to see if they can fake out a team into taking him earlier than he should go. You saw that they tried to do it last year with Malik Willis. It failed. It did not happen. It fooled all the mock drafters, but it didn't fool the NFL teams. That was crazy. And then we have a lesser version of that with Will Levis. What was your impression of the Will Levis sort of prospect process, the evaluation process, and then how it ended up shaking out on draft day? Because I heard that he could have easily been a first rounder, but the teams that were drafting in the late first didn't need quarterback and they didn't want to trade down or didn't want to, whatever.
I think his talent, right? If you look at his arm talent and his athleticism, potentially could have gotten him drafted in the first round if he checked every other box, right? The problem is it sounds like some of the interviews and some of the stuff that he was doing on social media turned teams off a little bit. I'll give you an example. And it sounds so silly, but this shirtless picture that he took where he was just jacked out of his mind, NFL teams don't like that. They don't want their quarterback to be that big and bulky, right? They want you to be slim and cut because those kind of guys just don't stay healthy. And it's just one of the many things that kind of turn people off on Will Levis a little bit. I just don't think he had a very good pre-draft process.
That was the thing about Bryce Young. Bryce Young versus Will Levis. No one, and I mean no one, and I mean no one, and by no one, I mean no one, Marcus, no one even close, has managed the pre-draft process like Bryce Young and his father.
Yes.
Where it was radio silence, it was no social media, it was all we're doing is kissing babies, acing tests, and putting ourselves in a position to look good, not bad.
And putting on a bunch of water weight, right? Like that's all that Bryce Young did this entire draft process, but it worked, right? Now there's
it was like a carefully crafted campaign.
Yes.
He was almost like a politician.
They had a plan. It clearly worked. Even when we heard all this CJ Stroud to Carolina buzz at number 1, it clearly worked. He ended up being the number 1 pick, and it was not a surprise to anybody.
Yeah, he was programmed from an early age. I think his father was a psychologist to be the perfect quarterback. Don Majowski,
I think so. Yeah.
Was that the guy I'm thinking of? There was Todd Marinovich.
Todd Marinovich for the Raiders, right?
That's right, Todd Marinovich, yep. The Magic Man.
Yep.
I got it wrong with the Magic Man. Sorry, Don Majowski, Magic Man. Apologies, you're not a robo quarterback. You're just fun. But yeah, the Todd Marinovich, that was the last robo quarterback who was basically created in a lab by his father, and it didn't work out well. He was like, at some point, I don't want to do this anymore, Dad. I don't want to be a quarterback. So I hope Bryce Young is wired a little bit different. Hopefully he's playing for all the right reasons and he loves it. But whenever I see the process this managed behind the scenes, I get a little nervous. A little shiver runs down my spine. I'm like, this is weird.
At least he was committed to what he was doing. And it wasn't just randomness thing, a random thing after another. It seemed like they had a plan. They executed it. To his credit, it worked. He's the number 1 pick.
Yeah. And they're doing the same thing at Texas with Manning. I think the Mannings they're following the same playbook.
Yeah.
With the next thing,
Archie
right?
Manning.
Arch Manning at Texas. Apparently, that whole process is being incredibly well crafted by the family. When he's going to play, if he's going to play, when he's going to take endorsement money, who he's going to talk to, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
So
he can't play though. That's the only problem.
What?
Yeah, Archie can't play. We'll find that out for sure in a couple of years. But the whispers out of Texas is he can't play.
Alex Dunlap is not going to like to hear that.
Sorry, Alex.
Oh,
He knows this.
no.
I'm sure he knows.
Oh,
The Texas people at the
no.
spring game were like, what did we sign up for? It was bad.
Oh, sorry, everybody. All right. Give me a truther. Give me the guy that you're not dropping, and under any circumstances would Marcus Mosher drop a guy. Well, actually, before we do that, give me a late round guy, sort of a guy that you think you're going to be truthering for in the years ahead, where you're like, this is a guy you want to stash and don't stop believing. Give me a late round guy.
Oh, there's quite a few of them in this.
Oh,
class.
Give me more than one. Yeah, we want more than
I kind of like Xavier Hutchinson a little bit that went to Houston in the 6th round.
Okay.
He's fine. I think he's just going to be an NFL player.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a really, really late one. How about Dwayne McBride, who went to the Vikings in the 7th round? Can't catch, has some off the field stuff, but man, he can run the football. And you look at that situation, who knows if Dalvin Cook is going to be on that team?
Do you think that Alexander Madison's this electric pass catcher?
No.
What are we talking about? Of course
Well,
it could be McBride. McBride's going to be DFS chalk at some point this year.
And the comp that people around the league kept giving McBride was, hey, he's Alfred Morris with more speed, which is like, great, sign me up, right? Like,
yeah, right.
You can do
but
that.
What about Ty Chandler, though? Because he's my actual truther.
Well, that's a good one. I like that one, too.
Ty Chandler, Ty Kevius is his name, and he's got a much more of an all-purpose skill set.
Sure.
And they took him much earlier. Do you know why they decided to take him a lot earlier than they took McBride? I mean, Ty Kevius was a 5th-round pick, and he runs a 4.38.
I think McBride would have been a top 100 pick if there wasn't some maturity stuff going on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, but doesn't that hurt the running back, though? Doesn't that hurt the guy that's he's trying to earn touches?
Yes, but
in practice, he's trying to get a look, and the maturity is what holds him back. I mean, DeAndre Swift got traded over that shit.
I will say the fact that he had more fumbles than receptions, he can't catch the ball at all. He's got maturity stuff and still got drafted. Tells you what teams think of his running ability alone.
Okay, so he's a great. Okay, give me another one.
Do you like Dontavian Wicks a little bit?
A little bit, I do. I do like Dontavian Wicks a little bit. He can play. He's not as athletic as I wanted him to be, but he was making plays at the Senior Bowl.
Sure.
And his collegiate production was, I think, adequate.
Yep. I got one more. This is the last one. This is my hottest take from the draft. Are you ready?
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, his athleticism score, because he's big, because he's 6'1", 212, essentially he's like a lesser version of Michael Wilson. So basically, Michael Wilson discount. You've seen his comp. Haven't you seen his comp on Player Profiler?
I have. Yes.
Travis Fulgham. Tell me that's not the perfect comp.
Yeah, he's gonna have like a 3-game stretch like Fulgham did.
Right there, baby.
All right, my hottest take from the draft.
Ooh.
After Bijan, after Gibbs, the running back that I want the most from this year's class, and I'm willing to overdraft him by a round, is Chase Brown, who went to the Bengals on day 3. You look at that situation with Joe Mixon, who, I mean, let's forget all the off-field stuff. I think is pretty washed up. Savaje Perine is gone. Chase Brown has legitimate athleticism and can be a weapon in the passing game. I think he's going to be their starter by 2024. And I'm willing to be, if I'm a year early, I'm a year early, but I think he can play.
That's the show. Hey, you like that video? Be sure to subscribe and activate those alerts so you get notified as soon as new videos drop. And be sure to check out playerprofiler.com. We have all the tools for you to dominate every type of fantasy league. We have a draft kit, Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, DFS Dominator, and don't forget the player rankings to rule them all.